A priceless diamond vanishes from a locked vault in the heart of London, and the only clue is a single white glove left on the table. Welcome to the story, The Secret Pilgrimage, Poirot versus the Invisible Hand. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and let's dive into this twisty mystery together. If you're enjoying the ride already, hit that subscribe button, and your support means the world to us. And drop in the comments where you're watching from today. Chapter 1. The Case Begins. The fog hangs thick over Baker Street on a chilly November morning in 1935 when Hercule Poirot steps out of his taxi and pauses to adjust his perfectly curled mustache. He has been summoned by Scotland Yard because something impossible has happened at the Grand Regency Bank. The famous star of cashmere diamond worth a king's ransom disappeared overnight from a vault guarded by steel doors, time locks, and two armed men. Yet nothing was broken, no alarm sounded, and the guards swear they never left their posts. Chief Inspector Japp meets Poirot at the entrance, looking tired and frustrated. "My friend," he says, "this one has us completely baffled." Poirot smiles with quiet confidence. "Then it is fortunate you have called Poirot." Inside the bank, the manager, Mr. Harrington, leads them down a narrow staircase to the vault room. The air smells of polished metal and old money. The heavy door stands open exactly as the night staff found it. Poirot walks slowly, examining every detail with his bright green eyes. He notices the white glove laid neatly in the center of the velvet cushion where the diamond once rested. Pure silk, spotless, not a fingerprint anywhere. Japp picks it up carefully. No sign of forced entry, no footprints in the dust, no secret tunnel. It's as if the diamond simply walked away by itself. Poirot strokes his mustache. Walked away? No, my friend. It was carried away by a hand that wishes to remain invisible. Harrington explains that only 3 people have the complete code to open the vault: himself, the head guard, and Lady Eleanor Ashford, the owner of the diamond. Lady Eleanor deposited the jewel yesterday afternoon for safekeeping, before leaving on a religious pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. She is due back in 10 days. Poirot raises an eyebrow. A pilgrimage, you say? Most interesting. He asks to see the security log and the exact time the vault was last opened. The book shows Lady Eleanor arrived at 3 o'clock, signed the register, and left at 3:25. The vault was locked again at 3:25 by Mr. Harrington himself. The next check came at 7 o'clock in the evening. Everything was normal. The morning shift discovered the empty cushion at 8. Poirot spends the next hour on his hands and knees studying the floor, the walls, the ceiling. He finds tiny scratches on the lock, barely visible to the naked eye. "Someone has used a special tool here," he murmurs. But the tool was used from the inside. Japp frowns. From the inside? That means whoever took the diamond was already in the vault when it was locked last night. Poirot nods. Exactly. And yet, no one was seen leaving. So, how did our thief escape the sealed steel room? Upstairs in the quiet office, Poirot sits with a small cup of thick, sweet coffee and begins to question the staff. First, the night guards. Both men are honest, hard-working fellows with families. They swear they watched the door all night, played cards, drank tea, nothing more. Poirot believes them. Next, the cleaning lady, Mrs. Bates, who polished the lobby at 6 o'clock. She remembers seeing a tall gentleman in a dark coat waiting near the side entrance. He wore a wide hat and carried a small leather case. When she asked if he needed help, he smiled politely and said he was waiting for a friend. 10 minutes later, she saw him leave. Poirot leans forward. This gentleman. Did he wear gloves? Mrs. Bates thinks hard. Yes, white ones. Very elegant. Poirot exchanges a quick glance with Japp. Our invisible hand begins to take shape. Before leaving the bank, Poirot asks to see Lady Eleanor's safety deposit box records. He discovers something curious. Besides the Star of Kashmir, she keeps a collection of rare pilgrimage medals from holy sites around the world. Santiago, Rome, Jerusalem, even a tiny silver scallop shell, the symbol of the Camino walk. Poirot taps the page gently. Lady Eleanor is not simply traveling for pleasure. She is following a secret path, one that perhaps our thief knows very well. As the little detective steps back into the foggy street, he turns to Jap. Tomorrow we visit the travel agency that arranged Lady Eleanor's journey. Tonight I will study maps of ancient pilgrimage routes. The diamond did not vanish by magic. It was taken by someone who understands luxe, devotion, and the art of disappearing into a crowd. Mark my words, Jap, this case will lead us far beyond London, across oceans and centuries, to a truth hidden in plain sight. The fog swirls around his polished shoes as Poirot climbs into a taxi. His mind is already racing ahead, piecing together the first fragile threads of the mystery. And somewhere far away, on a dusty Spanish road, a lone woman in a dark cloak walks steadily toward a distant cathedral, carrying a secret that will soon shake two worlds. What happens when Poirot follows the trail to the pilgrimage city? Who is the man in the dark coat? And why does the thief leave a perfect white glove behind?
Chapter 2. The Road That Leaves No Trace. The Calais ferry slips out of Dover under a sky the color of wet slate, and Poirot stands on deck, wrapped in a thick wool coat, his hat pulled low against the wind. He does not trust aeroplanes and prefers the slow rhythm of sea and train when his little gray cells need room to dance. Beside him sits a small leather suitcase containing 3 perfectly pressed handkerchiefs, a tin of Tisane, and a slim folder marked Ashford. Chap stayed in London to watch the bank and the ports, but Poirot knows the answer lies ahead on the old Pilgrim Road. By nightfall, he is in Paris, changing trains at Gare d'Austerlitz. He walks the platform slowly, watching faces. A tall man in a dark coat and wide hat stands near the newspaper kiosk buying Le Figaro. White gloves flash once as he turns the pages. Poirot smiles to himself and says nothing. The man boards the same sleeping car, 2 compartments down. Neither acknowledges the other. The train pulls south through the darkness toward Hendaye and the Spanish frontier. At Irun, the following dawn, Poirot hires a little Renault and drives west along narrow roads lined with chestnut trees. The Camino de Santiago appears without warning. A dusty track beside the highway, marked by yellow arrows painted on stones and trees. Old men with sticks, women in sensible shoes, young pilgrims with guitars on their backs, all walking the same direction. Poirot parks the car in a village square and joins the stream on foot. His polished shoes are soon gray with dust, but the discomfort is nothing compared to the pleasure of watching. In the town of Roncesvalles, he finds the ancient monastery where pilgrims have slept for 1,000 years. The hospitalero stamps his credential, even though Poirot carries no scallop shell and has no intention of walking the whole 800 kilometers. He asks quiet questions. Has anyone seen an English lady traveling alone, tall, elegant, silver hair beneath a black lace mantilla? Many have seen her. They remember her kindness, her soft voice, the way she always walked a little apart from the others. 3 nights ago she slept here. 2 nights ago in Zubiri. Last night she reached Pamplona. Poirot thanks the hospitalero, and that evening he sits in the pilgrim's refectory eating lentil soup and rough bread with 50 strangers. Across the table sits the tall man from the train. He has removed his hat, revealing thick iron-gray hair and a thin scar that runs from ear to jaw. He eats slowly, never looking up. When the meal ends, he stands, bows slightly to the room, and disappears into the dusk. Poirot finishes his wine and follows at a distance. The man walks beyond the monastery walls to a small stone chapel almost hidden among oak trees. He lights a candle, places something small and metallic on the altar, then kneels. Poirot waits in the shadows. When the man leaves, the detective slips inside. On the altar lies a silver scallop shell, identical to those worn by every pilgrim, except this one is old and dark with age. Engraved on the back in tiny letters is a single word: cashmere. Poirot pockets the shell and returns to the dormitory. He does not sleep. Instead, he sits by the window, watching moonlight on the mountains until the sky begins to pale. At sunrise, he is back on the road driving fast toward Pamplona. The city rises red and white against green hills, bull-ring walls, still stained from the running in July. He finds Lady Eleanor at the cathedral just as the morning mass ends. She kneels alone in a side chapel, her face hidden in her hands. When she rises, Poirot is waiting. "Lady Ashford," he says softly, "we must speak about a certain star that no longer shines in London." She does not startle. She simply looks at him with eyes the color of winter sea. "Monsieur Poirot, I wondered which of us would arrive first. Come, there is a quiet courtyard where the swallows nest. We will not be disturbed." They sit on a stone bench beneath lemon trees. Lady Eleanor speaks without hurry. "The diamond was never meant to stay in a bank vault. It belongs to the road. Long ago, my family stole it from a temple in the mountains above Srinagar. A Maharaja cursed it, saying it would bring ruin until returned by one who walked the way of stars with pure heart. Every generation since has grown rich, then died young or mad. I am the last. I decided to end the curse." Poirot listens without moving. "And the man who follows you? The one with the scar and the white gloves?" She smiles faintly. "He believes the curse is nonsense. He wants the stone for himself and for the people who pay him. He thinks if he takes it from me on holy ground, the curse will pass to me alone, and he will walk away clean. He is very clever. He opened the vault from the inside by hiding in the ceiling hours before I arrived. When I left, he simply waited until night, then walked out wearing the guard's spare uniform. No one notices another pilgrim carrying a small pack." Poirot turns the silver scallop in his fingers. "Yet you knew he would come. You left the glove as bait. You wanted me to follow." "I needed someone who sees what others do not, someone who understands that a crime can be an act of devotion. The thief thinks he hunts me. I have been hunting him since Dover. Tonight he will try to take the diamond in the old hospital of San Nicolas just outside the city walls. There is only one bridge. He must cross it. Will you walk with me, Monsieur Poirot, one last time beneath the stars?" Poirot stands and offers his arm. "It will be my pleasure, Lady Ashford. Let us see whose hand remains invisible when the night is over."
Chapter 3. The Bridge of San Nicolas. The moon is a thin, silver blade above the old walls of Pamplona when Hercule Poirot and Lady Eleanor Ashford leave the cathedral gate together. She wears the simple black dress and mantilla of a Spanish widow, but beneath the lace, her shoulders are straight and unafraid. In the deep pocket of her skirt rests the star of cashmere, wrapped in soft leather and tied with a rosary of dark wooden beads. Poirot carries nothing except his walking stick and the quiet certainty that tonight the invisible hand will finally reach out. They walk slowly through narrow streets, still warm from the day. Torches flicker in iron brackets outside the taverns, and the smell of grilled octopus drifts from the air. Pilgrims sit in doorways, singing softly in half a dozen languages. No one notices the small Belgian with the perfect mustache escorting the tall English lady. They look like any other pair of travelers sharing the last miles before Santiago. At the edge of the city, they reach the ancient stone bridge that crosses the river Arga. 5 arches rise above black water. Long ago, the Knights of St. John built a hospital on the far side to care for pilgrims who fell ill or were attacked by bandits. Only ruins remain now, but the bridge still carries the name San Nicolas. Lady Eleanor stops in the center of the first arch and rests her hands on the worn parapet. "He will come from the hospital side," she says. "There is a small path through the reeds that only someone who has walked the Camino many times would know. He believes I am alone." Poirot studies the shadows below. The river moves fast here, carrying moonlight in broken pieces. He notices fresh footprints in the soft earth beside the path. One set belongs to heavy boots. The other is lighter, almost delicate. Someone else is already waiting. A nightbird calls once, and everything becomes still. Then they hear it, the slow, measured tread of leather on stone. A tall figure appears at the far end of the bridge. Dark coat, wide hat, white gloves catching the moon like fresh snow. He walks without hurry, as though the night belongs to him alone. When he is halfway across, he stops. "Lady Ashford," he calls, his voice low and cultured, with the faintest trace of an accent Poirot cannot yet place. "The game ends here. Give me the stone and walk away. No one else need know." Lady Eleanor does not move. "You have followed me 2,000 miles for something that will destroy you. Go home while you still can." The man laughs softly. "Destruction is a matter of perspective, my lady. To me, it looks like freedom." He takes another step, and the white gloves rise slowly to his coat buttons. From an inside pocket, he draws a small pistol that glints once before disappearing into shadow. "I dislike violence, but I dislike losing more." Poirot steps forward, his stick tapping gently on the stones. "Monsieur, you have made one small mistake. You believe you are hunting a helpless woman. In fact, you are the one being hunted." The man turns his head, and for the first time the scar shows pale against his skin. "Poirot, I wondered if the English police were clever enough to send you." "It changes nothing. 2 bullets are faster than little gray cells." He raises the pistol. At that exact moment, a second figure rises from the darkness beneath the bridge. A young woman in the rough wool cloak of a pilgrim. Her face is streaked with mud, her hair hidden beneath a hood. In her right hand, she holds a heavy iron candlestick taken from some ruined chapel. She brings it down hard, across the man's wrist. The pistol spins away into the river with a soft splash. The man swears and swings at her with his gloved fist, but she is already moving. She knows the bridge, the stones, the shadows. He does not. Lady Eleanor steps aside as the young woman drives the thief backward, 1 step, 2, until his heels reach the edge of the parapet. Poirot watches calmly. The white gloves reach out, trying to find balance, but there is nothing except night air. For one heartbeat, the man hangs between safety and the black water below. His eyes meet Lady Eleanor's across the stones. Then the young woman places the candlestick against his chest and pushes. He falls without a cry. The river takes him quickly. Silence returns, broken only by the rush of water. Lady Eleanor turns to the young woman. "You came, Maria. I told you I would walk alone." The girl throws back her hood, revealing short black hair and eyes bright with anger and relief. "You also told me you would die before giving that cursed stone to anyone. I chose to believe the second promise more than the first." She looks at Poirot. "My grandmother served your family in Kashmir before the stone was stolen. Lady Eleanor brought me to England when I was 7. I have guarded her back every day since." Poirot bows slightly. "Mademoiselle, your timing is impeccable, and your candlestick most persuasive." Lady Eleanor opens her pocket and takes out the leather bundle. She unwraps the Star of Kashmir. Even in moonlight, the diamond burns with deep blue fire. She walks to the center of the bridge and holds it high above the water. "This ends tonight," she says. Then she lets it fall. The stone strikes the river and vanishes without sound. For a long moment, the three of them stand listening to the water carry it away toward the sea. Lady Eleanor closes her eyes. Somewhere far upstream in the mountains of Kashmir, a temple bell will ring once tomorrow morning, and my family debt will finally be paid. Maria puts an arm around her. "It is finished, Abuela. We can go home." Poirot watches the dark current. "And the thief?" "The river keeps its own," he replies. "Some men choose to disappear. Tonight, the Camino granted his wish." They walk back across the bridge together. Behind them, the moon slips behind a cloud, and the ancient stones hold their silence once more. Ahead, the road stretches west beneath a sky beginning to pale with the first promise of dawn. 3 pilgrims among thousands, none of them carrying anything more than the dust on their shoes and the lightness of a burden finally laid down.
Chapter 4. The Silence After the Stone. Dawn finds them on the road again, but everything feels different now. Lady Eleanor walks without the weight in her pocket, and her step is lighter than it has been in 40 years. Maria carries both packs, humming an old mountain song from Kashmir under her breath. Poirot keeps pace, though his shoes are ruined and his coat smells of river mist. No one speaks of what happened on the bridge. The Arga took the diamond and the man in the white gloves and gave nothing back. They reach the village of Zizur-Menor just as the church bells ring for early mass. An old priest in a patched cassock greets them at the door and offers breakfast in the parish house. While they eat warm bread and strong coffee, he asks where they are from and where they are going. Lady Eleanor answers only that they are finishing a very long pilgrimage that began long before any of them were born. The priest nods as if he understands more than she has said and presses 3 fresh figs into her hand for the journey. After breakfast, Poirot excuses himself and walks to the tiny post office. He sends 2 telegrams, one to Chief Inspector Japp in London. Case concluded, diamond destroyed, thief lost, presumed drowned. The second to a certain address in Srinagar. The star has returned to the water. Please inform the temple.
He pays the clerk, signs both messages simply HP, and steps back into the sunlight. Outside, Maria is waiting. She holds out the silver scallop shell the thief left in the chapel at Roncesvalles. "I found this in your coat pocket," she says. "It belongs to the road now, too." Poirot takes it, turns it once in his fingers, then places it carefully on the stone wall beside the church door. A passing pilgrim will pick it up before evening and carry it the rest of the way to Santiago. Some symbols are meant to keep traveling. They walk on through fields of stubble and low stone walls. The sky is wide and clear, and the Pyrenees has slipped behind them like a bad memory. Lady Eleanor tells stories she has never told anyone before. How her grandfather shot a temple guardian in 1898. How her father lost everything at cards, trying to outrun the curse. How she herself once nearly sold the stone to an American millionaire in 1919. Maria listens without surprise. Poirot listens without judgment. When the stories are finished, the silence between them is comfortable, like old friends. At a crossroads marked by a crude wooden cross, they meet a young German boy sitting exhausted beside his pack. He has walked from Munich and his feet are bleeding. Maria kneels, cleans the blisters with water from her bottle, tears a strip from her spare shirt for bandages. Lady Eleanor gives him the 3 figs the priest gave her. Poirot offers his last bar of chocolate. The boy tries to thank them in 3 languages at once, then simply cries. They leave him stronger than they found him and walk on. By late afternoon, they reach the hill above Puente Nerena. The famous 6-arch bridge lies below them, golden in the slanting light. Lady Eleanor stops at the summit and looks back the way they have come. "Somewhere behind us," she says, "a man is either dead or swimming very hard towards Portugal. Either way, he will never wear white gloves again." She smiles, the first real smile Poirot has seen on her face. "Thank you, Hercule, for walking the last miles with me." Poirot adjusts his battered hat and shrugs. "Madame, it has been my pleasure." Few cases end with the criminal punished by a river and the treasure returned by gravity. I shall tell Jap it was the perfect crime solved by the perfect pilgrimage. They stand a moment longer watching the sun touch the mountains, then turn together and start down the long slope toward the bridge and whatever lies beyond it. The road is still there, waiting for their footprints to fade like all the others before them.
Chapter 5. The Alchemist of Logroño. The next morning they leave Puente Lorena while the stones are still cold underfoot and the air smells of crushed grapes. Logroño lies 30 kilometers west, where the Ebro River runs wide and slow between vineyards turning gold. Lady Eleanor has one final task before she can truly call the pilgrimage finished. She carries a letter sealed with black wax, addressed to an old alchemist who lives above a wine cellar in the Calle San Juan. Years ago, this man offered to buy the Star of Kashmir, claiming he could dissolve the curse inside a crucible. She refused then, but promised if she ever returned the stone to the water, she would bring him proof. Tonight, she intends to keep that promise. They reach the city at dusk, when church bells argue across the rooftops and swallows slice the purple sky. Maria finds them rooms above a tavern where the landlord serves thick bean soup and red wine that stains the tongue. Poirot drinks only 1 glass, then excuses himself to walk the old Jewish quarter alone. His shoes are beyond repair now, caked with the dust of 3 countries, yet he refuses to replace them. He says they have become honest for the first time in their lives.
Maria laughs and calls him the only dandy she knows who is proud of looking like a tramp. Lady Eleanor watches them both with quiet fondness, already missing the strange little family they have become. At 10 o'clock, they climb narrow stairs behind the cathedral to a heavy oak door studded with iron nails. The alchemist opens before they knock, as though he has been listening for their footsteps all evening. He is small and bent, dressed in velvet that might once have been green, his beard white as salt. His eyes are sharp and young behind thick spectacles. He greets Lady Eleanor by her childhood name and kisses her hand as though she is still 16. When he sees Poirot, he bows low, murmuring that the great detective honors his poor house. Then he ushers them inside, where the air smells of sulfur, rosemary, and old parchment. The workshop is a cave of wonders, shells of glass retorts, a furnace glowing soft orange, books chained to the walls. In the center stands a marble table carved with circles and stars. The alchemist lights 7 candles, places a silver bowl in the middle, and asks for proof the curse is broken. Lady Eleanor opens her hand, revealing a single drop of river water caught in a tiny crystal vial at the bridge. She pours it into the bowl. The alchemist adds a pinch of dust that sparks green, then gold. The water turns clear again, but for one heartbeat, the shape of a perfect 8-pointed star floats on the surface before vanishing. He closes his eyes, nods once, and speaks in a voice like dry leaves. The debt is paid, the circle is closed, the mountains may sleep. Then he does something none of them expect. He takes a small leather pouch from his belt, opens it, and tips out a diamond, the exact twin of the one lost in the Arga. It blazes blue fire across the room. Lady Eleanor steps back, her face pale. The alchemist smiles sadly. I made this 30 years ago from glass and sapphire dust, so that one day I could test the truth. Tonight, the test is complete. He lifts the false stone high and smashes it against the marble. Shards scatter like ice. Maria catches her breath, but Poirot only strokes his mustache, studying the old man with new respect. You knew all along the real stone would never come through your door. The alchemist bows. I knew a woman brave enough to walk 800 kilometers to drown a fortune would never carry it in her pocket twice. I simply wished to see the water that had the courage to swallow it. He pours rich Rioja into 4 silver cups, raises his, to rivers that keep secrets and to pilgrims who set them free.
Chapter 6. The Plain Where Nothing Happens. They leave Logroño before sunrise, walking west along a straight Riemann road that cuts the plain like a knife. For the first time in weeks, there is no mystery to chase, no shadow behind them, no cursed stone pressing against a heart. Only sky and wheat stubble stretching to every horizon. The wind moves in long waves across the fields, carrying the faint smell of distant snow. Lady Eleanor walks in the middle, Maria on her left, Poirot on her right. Their footsteps fall into the same quiet rhythm, as though the road itself has decided they belong together a little longer. By 10 o'clock, the sun is already fierce, and the land offers no shade except the occasional oak or crumbling adobe barn. Pilgrims appear and disappear like ships on a yellow ocean, some greeting them with a cheerful Buen Camino, others lost in their own silence. A Dutch couple argues softly about blisters. A lone Korean girl sings hymns under her breath. Poirot listens to everything and says almost nothing. He is busy noticing how ordinary the world becomes when no one is trying to kill you or steal from you. At midday, they reach a tiny village that consists of one street, a fountain,
and a bar older than most countries. The owner brings out a table into the dust so they can eat beneath the only tree. Tortilla thick with potato, garlicky mushrooms, bread still warm from the oven. They drink cold beer from brown bottles and watch chickens quarrel over crumbs. Maria stretches her legs on the bench, closes her eyes, and for the first time in days, falls asleep sitting up. Lady Eleanor covers her with her own shawl and smiles the way mothers do when their children finally feel safe. Poirot lights a small cigar and allows himself one quiet sigh of perfect contentment. In the afternoon, the heat thickens until the air itself seems to stand still. They walk slowly now, letting the road set the pace. Somewhere behind them, a church bell strikes 3, and the sound travels for miles across the empty plain. Lady Eleanor begins to speak, not stories of curses this time, but small memories. The smell of her mother's kitchen in Shimla, the first time she saw snow fall on the Thames, the letter that arrived from Kashmir when she was 9, telling her the family fortune was now her responsibility. She speaks softly and without drama, as if laying each memory gently on the ground for the wind to carry away. Toward evening, the land lifts a little, and they climb a low ridge where someone long ago piled stones into a cairn. From the top, they can see the road unrolling ahead like a pale ribbon, all the way to Burgos, still 3 days distant. The sun is beginning to drop behind them, painting the wheat the color of burnt copper. Maria adds a small stone to the cairn, the custom of every pilgrim who passes. Lady Eleanor adds another. Poirot searches his pockets, finds only a silver 10-pence piece, polishes it on his sleeve, and places it carefully on the pile. Money has caused enough trouble, he says. Let this one stay where it can do no harm. Night catches them at a lonely albergue run by an order of nuns who speak no English and very little Spanish. They are given soup thick with vegetables, beds with clean sheets, and the gift of absolute silence after Compline. Poirot lies awake for a while, listening to the breathing of 200 pilgrims in the dark. He thinks about rivers, white gloves, false diamonds, and the strange peace that comes when a case ends not with handcuffs, but with water and gravity. Somewhere across the dormitory, he hears Maria murmur in her sleep, and Lady Eleanor answer with a single soft word in Kashmiri. He smiles into the darkness, closes his eyes, and sleeps deeper than he has in years. Then everything goes fully to black. He hears the sound of door opening before he sees the figure in the darkness.
Chapter 7. The City That Remembers Everything. They reach Burgos on a Thursday afternoon, when the great cathedral rises out of the heat haze like a stone ship sailing across the Meseta. The spires stab a sky so blue it hurts the eyes, and every bell in the city seems to be ringing at once for no reason anyone can name. Lady Eleanor stops at the edge of the old town and simply looks. 50 years ago, she stood on this same spot as a girl of 19, carrying the Star of Kashmir and a velvet bag around her neck, on her way to deposit it in the London bank for the first time. She remembers the weight of it then, and feels the absence now like a missing limb that no longer aches. Maria takes her arm gently, and they walk together under the Arco de Santa Maria, while Poirot trails a few respectful steps behind, studying the carved saints and kings who have watched pilgrims come and go for 800 years. Inside the cathedral, the air is cool and smells of candle smoke and centuries of incense. Light falls in colored pieces through the high windows, turning the stone floor into a slow-moving river of red and gold. They stand quietly in front of the tomb of El Cid, his stone horse forever frozen mid-gallop above him. Lady Eleanor lights 3 candles, one for her grandfather who stole the diamond, one for the temple guardian he killed, and one for the man the river took on the bridge of San Nicolas. She does not pray aloud, but her lips move for a long time. Poirot watches the flames and thinks that forgiveness is heavier work than revenge and far less dramatic. When she turns away, her eyes are dry and clear as winter water. That evening, they find rooms in a narrow house owned by a widow who once walked the Camino herself after her husband died in the Civil War. She feeds them lentil stew with chorizo, thick slices of bread rubbed with tomato and garlic, and a bottle of Ribera del Duero that tastes of black cherries and earth. After supper, she brings out a box of old photographs and spreads them across the table. There is one picture from 1936 showing a tall English girl with silver blonde hair standing beside the same cathedral door. The widow taps the photograph with a bent finger. "That was you," she says to Lady Eleanor. "I remember because you gave me a sweet when Franco's soldiers were marching through and I was crying." Lady Eleanor touches the faded image as though it belongs to someone else, and smiles the small, sad smile of people who have outlived almost everyone they ever knew. Later, Poirot walks alone to the Plaza Mayor, where old men play cards under plane trees and children chase pigeons until the street lamps come on. He buys a newspaper, drinks a small coffee at an outdoor table, and pretends for an hour that he is simply another traveler with nowhere particular to be. A street musician plays a slow fado on a battered guitar, and the notes drift across the square like smoke. Poirot drops a coin in the hat and thinks about the difference between justice and mercy. He decides the Camino has taught him that sometimes the kindest verdict is the one no court can ever deliver. He folds the newspaper, lights a thin cigar, and watches the sky turn indigo above the rooftops. Maria finds him there near midnight. She has changed into a clean cotton dress the color of sunflowers, and her short hair is still damp from washing. She sits without asking and orders 2 glasses of Arujo from the waiter. They drink the sharp herbal liquor in silence for a while. Then she speaks very quietly. "When we reach Santiago, I am staying in Spain. My grandmother is old, and the house in the mountains is empty. Lady Eleanor has already given me the money to buy it back from the bank. She says the curse took everything from our family except the right to go home." Poirot nods once and says nothing, because there is nothing useful to say. Back at the widow's house, Lady Eleanor is sitting on the roof terrace, under a sky crowded with stars. She has a wool blanket around her shoulders and a letter in her lap, written on thick cream paper. She hands it to Poirot without a word. It is from the temple in Kashmir, dated 3 weeks ago. The priests thank her for returning the star to the water and invite her to come whenever she wishes, as an honored guest, not as a debtor. They have placed a small blue lotus, carved from lapis, on the empty space where the diamond once rested. And every dawn, the youngest novice lights incense there in her name. Lady Eleanor folds the letter again and tucks it inside her shirt next to her heart. They stay 1 more day in Burgos because none of them is ready to leave the city that remembers everything. They climb the hill to the castle ruins at sunset and look out over red roofs and rivers and the long plain they have already crossed. Far in the west, the sun sinks behind mountains still 200 kilometers away, but close enough now to feel real. Lady Eleanor speaks only once. "I thought ending the curse would feel louder," she says. "Instead, it feels like breathing after holding the air for 50 years. Maria rests her head on the older woman's shoulder, and Poirot stands a little apart, letting them have the moment that belongs only to them. Night comes quickly in the high plateau,
and the first star appears above the cathedral spire like a quiet promise kept. When they finally walk out through the city gate the next morning, the widow presses a paper package of homemade membrillo into Lady Eleanor's hands and kisses each of them on both cheeks. The road west is climbing now, gently but steadily, into oak forests and higher air. Behind them, Burgos shrinks to a cluster of golden stone and bells. Ahead, the Camino narrows again, becoming a simple path between stone walls and wild thyme. They do not look back often. The city has already done the remembering for them, and the road is teaching them how to forget in the gentlest possible way. One foot, then the other, dust and silence, and the slow, sweet work of becoming ordinary again.
Chapter 8. The Hill of Joy. The path climbs steadily, now leaving the wide plains behind and entering the green folds of Galicia. Oak and chestnut close overhead, dripping from morning rain, and the air smells of wet earth and eucalyptus. Every village they pass has stone granaries raised on mushroom-shaped legs and old women in black who cross themselves when the pilgrims go by. The three of them walk without speaking much, because words feel suddenly small against the weight of what is coming. Santiago is only 4 days away, and each kilometer loosens something inside them that has been tied tight for years. They spend the night in a tiny hamlet called Ligonde, in a house that was once a pilgrim's hospital in the 15th century. The hospitalero is a soft-spoken man from Valencia, who stamps their credentials with ink still wet and offers bowls of caldo gallego, thick with greens and pork fat. After supper, the pilgrims gather around a fire in the yard, and someone brings out a bottle of quemada. The hospitalero lights the blue flame under the copper bowl, recites the ancient spell against evil spirits in Galician, and the fire roars up, sweet and fierce. Lady Eleanor drinks her cup without flinching, and the flames paint gold across her face. Maria watches her and realizes she has never seen the older woman afraid of anything, ever. Poirot sips once, coughs delicately, and declares the drink is clearly designed to wake the dead or kill the living. The next morning, the sky is low in silver, and the path turns to mud. They walk through forests so dark the sun comes in thin green spears, and every leaf drips like it is crying with happiness. At a place called Osebrero, they climb above the clouds, and suddenly the world falls away on every side. Stone villages cling to the ridge like swallows' nests, and the wind moves the grass in long, slow waves. Lady Eleanor stops at the church door, breathes the cold, clean air, and says this is where the old Camino used to end before they moved the saint to Santiago. She lights another candle, not for the dead this time, but for the living, who still have roads to walk. Maria stands beside her, and for the first time calls her abuela out loud. That afternoon, they descend through chestnut woods, where the path is carpeted thick with fallen leaves, the color of burnt honey. An old man sits on a wall playing bagpipes that sound like mourning and welcome at the same time. He nods as they pass, and the music follows them down the valley until it fades behind the trees. Poirot walks with his hands behind his back, thinking about how strange it is that the closer they come to the end, the slower time seems to move. He decides the little gray cells have finally learned the wisdom of tired feet. Maria laughs when he tells her this and says his gray cells are simply drunk on Galician air. Lady Eleanor smiles at both of them, the way a mother smiles when her children are happy and safe, and hers. On the last night before the final climb, they sleep in a farmhouse outside Sarria, where the family keeps a huge iron pot always simmering on the hearth. The daughter of the house, a girl of 16, with serious eyes, brings them fresh milk, still warm from the cow. She asks Maria in careful Spanish if it is true that some pilgrims walk all the way from Jerusalem. Maria answers yes, and the girl's eyes grow wide,
as if the world has suddenly become much larger. Later, when the house is quiet, Lady Eleanor sits on the stone bench outside and writes a single page in her small leather journal. She tears it out, folds it twice, and gives it to Poirot. "Read it when you are home," she says, "and do not argue." The final day dawns clear and cold. They leave before light, following a path that climbs gently through eucalyptus groves, silvered with dew. Every step feels deliberate now, as though the earth itself is counting. At Monte do Gozo, the hill of joy, they stop and look down. There, below them, the towers of the cathedral rise out of morning mist, pale gold and perfect. Lady Eleanor stands very still, tears running quietly down her cheeks. Maria puts an arm around her. Poirot removes his battered hat and holds it against his chest. None of them moves for a long time. The bells begin to ring across the city, calling the pilgrims home. And for the first time in 800 kilometers, Hercule Poirot feels something suspiciously like prayer rise in his throat. The road has done its work. The pilgrimage is almost over, and the rest of their lives is waiting on the other side of those towers.
Chapter 9. The Square of the Two Arrivals. They descend Monte do Gozo together in the pale early light, 3 small figures on a wide green hill. The path is steep and slippery with dew, but none of them hurries. Every few steps, Lady Eleanor pauses, turns, and looks back at the road they have walked. Maria keeps one hand lightly on the older woman's elbow, ready to steady her if the stones shift. Poirot walks a little behind, carrying both women's packs now without being asked. His ruined shoes make no sound on the wet earth. Far below, the city wakes slowly, shutters opening, the first smoke from bakery chimneys, the low bronze voice of the cathedral bell marking 7 o'clock. At the edge of the old town, they pass beneath the arch of Porta do Caminho, where centuries of pilgrims have scratched their names into the stone. Lady Eleanor stops and runs her fingers over the grooves, finding one set of initials carved in 1935, E.A. She traces them once, smiles, and adds nothing new. Maria watches her, eyes shining. Poirot notices a fresh carving just above it, M.S. 2025, and raises an eyebrow at the girl. She shrugs, unrepentant. The arch lets them through into streets still empty, except for cats and the smell of warm bread. They walk the last kilometer in silence, past the seminary, past the fountain where pilgrims once watered their horses, until the Rua do Franco opens into the great Praça do Obradouro. The square is almost empty. Only a handful of early arrivals kneel or lie flat on the stones, packs beside them, faces turned to the cathedral facade as though it were the sun itself. Lady Eleanor steps onto the scallop shell set into the center of the plaza, the exact point where every Camino ends, and stands motionless. Maria drops to her knees without thinking and presses both palms to the cold granite. Poirot remains standing, hat in hand, feeling suddenly that he is intruding on something older and larger than any case he has ever solved. After a long minute, Lady Eleanor speaks, so quietly that only the two beside her can hear. "I thought I would feel triumph or relief. Instead, I feel small. The cathedral has been waiting 800 years for people like us to arrive tired and empty-handed. That is its genius." She lowers herself slowly until she too is kneeling, black skirt pooling around her like spilled ink. Maria leans against her shoulder and begins to cry without sound, the way rain falls when no one is watching. A busker begins to play somewhere near the parador. The pure notes of a Galician gaita drift across the square and mingle with the bells. One by one, other pilgrims appear at the edges of the plaza, drawn by the same invisible thread. Some cheer, some weep, some simply stand and stare, as if they have walked into a dream they are afraid to wake from. Poirot watches them all with the detached tenderness he usually reserves for order and symmetry. Today, there is no puzzle to arrange, no criminal to unmask. There is only this: 3 people who began as strangers and now share something no court or newspaper will ever record. They rise at last and walk the final steps to the cathedral door. Inside, the cool darkness smells of wax and stone and centuries of incense. They join the slow queue of pilgrims waiting to embrace the saint. When Lady Eleanor's turn comes, she climbs the worn steps behind the altar, places her arms around the jewel-encrusted statue of St. James, and rests her forehead against the cold silver shoulder for a very long time. Maria follows, pressing her cheek to the same place, whispering rapid words in Kashmiri that only the saint and the stones will ever know. Poirot hesitates. He is not a man for embraces, but the pilgrim behind him gently pushes him forward. He lays one small gloved hand. He has found a new pair somewhere, on the saint's cloak, bows his head, and surprises himself by murmuring, "Merci." Later, they descend to the crypt. The silver reliquary glimmers in its niche. Lady Eleanor lights 3 more candles and stands back. Maria slips her hand into the older woman's hand. Poirot studies the Latin inscription and translates softly, "Here lie the bones of the Apostle James, son of Zebedee." He stops, throat unexpectedly tight. Lady Eleanor finishes for him, "And the hopes of a million weary travelers." She turns away first, shoulders squared, ready now for whatever comes after arrival. Outside, the square was filled with morning light and people. Someone has chalked Buen Camino on the stones in letters 3 meters high. A group of Italians burst into song. Maria buys 3 paper cups of thick Galician coffee from a street vendor and hands one to each of them. They drink standing together in the center of the scallop shell, watching the sun strike fire from the cathedral towers. Lady Eleanor raises her cup. "To rivers," she says. "To roads," Maria answers. Poirot lifts his own cup, eyes bright, and to the perfect invisibility of a crime that was never truly a crime at all. They drink. The pilgrimage is finished. The rest of their lives begins here, on a sunlit Tuesday in December, with coffee and bells and the quiet certainty that some stories end exactly where they were always meant to.
Chapter 10. The Third Pilgrim. The sun is high over the Praça do Obradoiro when the 3 of them finally leave the cathedral and walk to the far corner of the square where the old parador keeps its shaded portico. Lady Eleanor stops beneath the arches and draws a slow breath as though she has been holding it since London. She turns to Poirot, and for the first time since he met her, there is no veil at all in her winter sea eyes. "Hercule," she says, "I have one last confession. I did not walk 800 kilometers to return a diamond. I walked them to return a man." Poirot's mustache does not even twitch. He has been waiting for this since the bridge of San Nicolas. He simply inclines his head. "Continue, madame." "The man in the white gloves was never a thief hired by anyone. He was my husband. Captain Reginald Ashford, reported dead in Mesopotamia in 1917. He was not dead. He was taken prisoner, sold to a Maharaja who needed an English officer to train his palace guard. The Maharaja already possessed the Star of Kashmir. Reginald recognized it, saw the family crest cut into the setting, and understood what my grandfather had done.
Instead of exposing the theft, he stole the diamond back, intending to bring it home and clear the family name. But the war ended, the Maharaja died, and Reginald disappeared into the mountains with the stone and a curse of his own making. She pauses, lets the bells finish their slow counting of noon. He spent 17 years trying to get home. By the time he reached England in 1934, I had buried an empty coffin and become the last guardian of a legend. He watched me from a distance, terrified the curse had marked me too. When I announced the pilgrimage, he understood I meant to drown the diamond and end everything. He followed, not to take the stone, but to stop me. He believed if he could reach me first, he could return it to Kashmir himself and die clean. Maria speaks for the first time, her voice steady. I knew everything. He wrote to me in London when I was 12. He was the scarred man who sent money every month for my schooling. He asked only that I watch over Abuela and tell him when she finally decided to break the chain. On the bridge, I did not push a stranger into the river. I pushed my grandfather. He looked at me just before he fell and smiled. He said, "Tell her, I am sorry I took so long to come home." Lady Eleanor opens her hand. Inside lies the real star of Kashmir, blue fire, wrapped in faded silk. It never left her pocket. What fell into the Arga was the alchemist's perfect glass copy. She and Maria switched them the night in Logroño while Poirot slept. The river took a lie. The truth walked on with them every step, the last 200 kilometers. Poirot looks at the diamond, then at the two women. And the white glove left in the bank vault. Reginald's calling card. He wanted you to know someone understood what you were planning. He wanted me to follow, so that when the moment came, there would be a witness who could not be bribed or threatened. He trusted the little gray cells to see justice, even when justice wore the face of mercy. Lady Eleanor nods. This morning, in the crypt, I placed the real stone in the silver reliquary box beside the bones of the saint. No priest saw, no pilgrim will ever know, but the star of Kashmir now rests exactly where thousands of penitents have laid their heaviest burdens for 1,000 years. The curse is buried under centuries of forgiven sins. Even if someone stole it tomorrow, it would no longer be the Ashford diamond. It would be the cathedral's. She closes Poirot's fingers over the empty silk. Keep this. Remember that sometimes the perfect crime is the one where nothing is taken and everything is returned. Reginald is at peace in the river. The temple will never know the stone came home because it never truly left the road. And I am free. Maria embraces her fiercely, then steps back. I am going to the mountains to reopen the old house. Abuela will visit every spring when the apricots bloom. You, Hercule Poirot, must come too. There is a room with a view of the same peaks the Maharaja once ruled. We will drink tea that does not taste of guilt and argue about whose turn it is to make breakfast. Poirot bows low over Lady Eleanor's hand. It will be my very great honor. He straightens, pockets the silk square, and for the first time in his life looks almost shy. You have taught me, madame, that some mysteries are not solved by catching the criminal. They are solved by allowing him to disappear into the mercy he spent a lifetime running from. I shall dine out on many cases. This one I will carry in silence, like a scallop shell in the lining of my coat. They stand together a moment longer while the square fills with new pilgrims, laughing, weeping, embracing. Then Lady Eleanor kisses Poirot once on each cheek. Maria hugs him hard enough to surprise them both. They turn in different directions, she and Maria toward the bus station and the long journey to Kashmir. Poirot toward the taxi that will take him to the airport and eventually to London. At the edge of the plaza, he pauses, looks back. The two women are walking away beneath the arches, their shadows touching, though they no longer carry anything heavier than the Galician light. Poirot raises one gloved hand in a small private salute. Then he steps into the taxi and tells the driver in perfect Spanish, "To the airport, my friend. I have a new case waiting. It is called The Rest of My Life." The car pulls away. Behind it, the cathedral bells begin to ring again for no reason anyone can name. And somewhere far beneath the high altar, a small blue star sleeps quietly among the bones of an apostle, guarded forever by the invisible hand of every pilgrim who ever arrived tired, empty-handed, and finally unafraid.